Hey, everybody, we're back again. This is part five of our ongoing look at the 2000s movie wise, 2000 to 2009, that first decade. And today we're going to look at crime thrillers, mysteries, suspense, that whole genre of movies. I'm back with Brian, AYBL Maine, Trey from Reactions to the Classics, Doc, also known as Shawn, also known as Doc, either way myself. We're going to tackle this category. This is one of the stronger categories, in my opinion, of the 2000s. So let's crack it and get started. Trey, what do you have for us? 5 through 1.
All right. Yeah. As you said, Rich, this was the toughest one for me to do on our entire list because it's just such a loaded category. But starting off at five, I got a David Fincher flick. I'm going with Zodiac. Pretty stout cast here. You got Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo kind of teaming up before they would, of course, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Iron Man and the Hulk. Jake Gyllenhaal kind of stars as the leading man working at a newspaper company and trying to figure out the mystery, the real life mystery of the Zodiac killer. Such a tense film, in particular the scene where Jake's character's kind of getting the beat on it. He thinks a little bit. He meets who he thinks might be the Zodiac killer in his in this guy's house, which just locks from the inside for some reason. And it's just oh man, it brings about more tension and scares than a lot of horror movies do in that scene. Very dark cinematic, or with
Yeah.
the cinematography as well. Big fan of that. Number four, I got Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Man, I watched
That's
this
a
film
great pick.
recently, loved it. And it stars a man we've talked about quite a bit already, Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of my favorites. Ethan Hawke as well. They are brothers, and they kind of come up and concoct this plan. They're both short on money that they're going to rob their parents' jewelry store. And oh man, the twists and turns that happen. It's also told in a non-linear fashion, which kind of makes it stand out. And I mean, Sidney Lumet is just fantastic. There's so many movies of his that are on my watch list. The
Yeah.
classics that he put out back in the 60s and 70s that I'm looking forward to. But this one, it doesn't get talked about, it seems, that much. But if you haven't ever watched it, I think you're in for a big treat in that one. And number three was touched on a little earlier. I got it in here. Ethan Hawke keeping it going. Ethan Hawke and Denzel, Training Day.
There you go.
Oh man, that highly rewatchable film.
Yeah.
Denzel, just Shawn, you noted whenever you touched on it in a previous video we did. He's just such an evil character in this, but he's so damn cool at the same time. And my favorite scenes are when they go like into the belly of kind of the city, where it's like Ethan Hawke says, "Oh, don't they say you need like a whole cavalry to come down here?" And Denzel's just all like, "Yeah, so you're only going to come down here with me." Denzel very corrupt, and he does things to Ethan Hawke's character that come into play later on in the movie that you didn't expect. Like, you're like, okay, this Denzel's character is thinking at another level here. Just highly tense, and like I said, incredibly rewatchable, fantastic performances and dialogue all as well. I love Denzel's kind of ending monologue. King Kong ain't got shit on me, and he goes,
Right.
I love that. Number two here is I just went through these gentlemen, their whole filmography. It's going to be No Country for Old Men. Just gosh, so many dynamite performances in this one. I mean, you have Tommy Lee Jones starring as a sheriff, and it's set kind of in West Texas. And me being a Texas dude myself, I enjoyed some of the shout outs to Plano and some of the places I actually know around here. You have the hitman, Javier Bardem, who actually won Best Supporting Actor, and well deserved. One of the best characters the Coens have ever put on screen, I think. And just with his unique little weapon that's like he has like the oxygen tank, and that's his weapon of choice, man. And it's brutal. And Josh Brolin kind of gets caught up into that, and he has this money and briefcase, and that comes into play, and but very philosophical in certain instances as well. Get you really thinking. Kelly MacDonald is also fantastic as Brolin's wife in here. You even have Woody Harrelson pop up in a bit of a supporting role, and he makes the most use of his little screen time, and it's got all the great dialogue and kind of a bit of that quirkiness that you expect from the Coens. My number one here is going to be a Scorsese film. I have The Departed topping in at number one here, which I'm sure it's going to be on all of our list. I would be surprised if it's not. Just, gosh, what an ensemble cast, y'all. I mean, we have Leonardo DiCaprio, we have Damon in here, we have Jack, when probably one of his last like true iconic roles. Even Martin Sheen's in here. And I just love the interplay between the mob and Jack's kind of ruling that with the cop, and you don't know who's on whose side really until like the last scenes of the movie go in. You get a romance angle kind of thrown in there that adds some food for thought and kind of stirs the pot up as well. With those performances, with Martin behind the camera directing it all, I mean, he's just obviously one of the GOATs, one of the best directors of all time. And it's one of my favorite films by him, and one of my favorites of the decade. So had to put that at number one.
Good choice.
Fantastic. Absolutely
Very
great.
good.
I have to say I have 3 of those 5 in my list, but that'll be for later. Shawn, what do you have for us?
I'm going to jump in. So mystery, thriller, crime. So I'm going to start off with I'm starting off with Unbreakable at number 5, actually.
M. Night.
This is, I think, The Sixth Sense made an appearance on their last, maybe the 90s videos. I think this is actually his best movie, to be honest with you. And, he's a hit and miss kind of guy. So, but I love the way that actually he shows this movie. I think it's gray, it's dark, and it's colored based with greens and purples, and it's really life imitating the comics, if you want the truth. That's what it's all based on, That's the glass character of Samuel L. Jackson versus the unbreakable character of Bruce Willis. And it's there's polarizing opposites to whatever the opposite is of whatever I've got. And that's there's got to be somebody else out there completely opposite of whatever I got. So I think it's a really well told little story about just even like the lengths people will go, actually. So Samuel L. Jackson character is pretty ruthless in some senses too, so it's and Split that comes up later on is not a bad little tie up to certain things, but I have Unbreakable at number 5. I enjoy it, and I can watch. It's a rewatchable movie for me in this genre for sure. So my number 4 is coming in with The Gangs of New York. So I think Brian, you might have had this one earlier in a different category, so I'm dropping this one in here just because of Bill the Butcher being a criminal ass. So I'll just put him in here for that reason. It's Daniel Day-Lewis, and it's you're right, it's it doesn't show a good time in American history at that time. So it's who's taking over, and this is my ancestors' land compared to yours and everything else. It's Scorsese again. So yes, we do have a lot of love, I think, for Scorsese in here too. So bloody violence, and Bill the Butcher is, in this particular case for this movie, as much as there's a whole bunch of really good supporting cast characters and actors and actresses in this movie, this is all Daniel Day-Lewis, man. This is, in my eyes, I think he's the guy carrying this movie. DiCaprio is not really in his own at this level yet, I don't find. And not that it shows, it just shows you how good Daniel Day-Lewis really is. I just think that guy is.
If you're standing in a room with Daniel Day-Lewis, I don't care if you're on your A game, you're just not going to look like you're there.
No, and there's scenes in that movie that just, you see it less in There Will Be Blood. I find in some of the acting, because I find it's almost like a little closer in some spots, but I find it to be a bigger separation in some spots. But I still love the movie and everything about it. So it's on the list, man. It's my number 4. Number 3 is going to come in with one you had earlier, Rich. It's Mystic River.
Mhm.
I think this is a fantastic flick too from Clint. You're right, it's disturbing. There's a lot of 20 years later, after 3 kids grew up together as best friends, there they are, and life has changed for everybody.
Right.
And they've all gone their separate ways, like you touched on. And it's Sean Penn. Sean Penn's been popping up on a lot of lists throughout these videos, on everybody's list at one point or another, for a reason, man. This guy, can act, and he's at it again. But I actually do believe Tim Robbins is actually the guy that actually steals the show in this one.
I have to 100% agree with you on that. 100%.
It's that's his best role as far as I'm concerned. It's a must watch. Yeah, I mean, as much as that some of the content is disturbing, it's a must watch from this era.
Yeah.
So it comes down to 2 and 1 now, Trey. Here we go, buddy. You ready?
Good luck.
So my number 2 is The Departed.
Mm.
So yeah, I love this movie. I love the backstabbing. I love everything that goes on in this movie. Actually, I'm not a big Mark Wahlberg fan, but he's really good in this movie
He's
too.
great in that movie.
Yeah,
Great.
And and sometimes even like the Matt Damons, and sometimes they're hit and misses sometimes with different things, but another really great performance. DiCaprio is great. I mean, everybody's really good. Baldwin, Martin Sheen, this cast is top notch, man. And Jack, right? So yeah, that the spies and the moles and everything else that goes on in this movie is
the rat walking across the rail.
There's a rat, right? It reminds me of Jack almost in the original Batman. And ratted out, but it's a fantastic movie, man. It's definitely one of the better ones of the night, the 2000s here.
Yeah.
And the only one I can see taking it out is No Country for Old Men. So, Anton, I think Michael Myers is afraid of that dude, man. That guy is Javier deserved everything he got for this. This movie is, you're right, it's a movie, right? It's a storytelling movie here, and there's a lot going on in the story. And you're right. Josh is great in this movie. The Tommy Lee Jones for when he's in it, but I mean, you just don't want to flip a coin with this dude, no matter what. This guy's coming at you, and it's
Why not in well?
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I love both characters. I love both main characters in this movie, and it's almost a disheartening ending in one sense because of it. But the Coens never leave you wanting, they just tell you a story, man. They're not there to tell you that's going to be good or bad. They just want you to. It's fantastic. It's fantastic, and it's to me, it's probably the movie of the decade.
I happen to agree. The 1, 2 are hard to place because they're both top notch.
Yeah, I flipped a coin. Anton won.
I didn't, but I could have because they're both great. All right, Brian, what do you have for your top 5?
Well, Doc and I have 4 of the same ones. So
that's my man.
Questionable.
You're twins, man. You're unbelievable. Go ahead.
Questionable order here. My number 5 is Sin City. It's the movie adaptation of Frank Miller's graphic novel. Him and Robert Rodriguez put together this thing. It's very artsy and creative, where it kind of blends live action and the comic book style, and the coloring is always this contrast. That's kind of interesting. I thought Clive Owen was great in it. Bruce Willis, Mickey Rourke's character is very interesting. Jessica Alba is at her sexiest by a long shot in this movie. I was like, yeah, that's a great movie. Let's rewind this a couple times. But It was good. I got that there. That's kind of like my comic book thing there. Number 4 for me was Unbreakable, and I agree with Doc 100%. I think this is M. Night Shyamalan's best film that he actually made. It didn't have to be, didn't have to use this crazy little last minute hook at the end to kind of like put his stamp on it, like he did with Sixth Sense and The Village and things like that. This was just a genuinely good movie. Again, if you remove any type of comic book element to it, it still would have been a story that could hold onto itself. It had enough fabric that it could hold on to. Samuel L. Jackson's great in it. Bruce Willis, Robin Wright, Robin Wright. She may have been Penn at the time that she made it, but I'm not entirely sure. I thought she was great in it too. It was a nice movie by him. I like the scene at the beginning, actually, when they're interviewing him and they're telling him he's the only person left. And in the background, you can see the contrast change where it's just black and white in the background, but suddenly the blood starts to fill the chest cavity of the last remaining person that was left on the train that was actually still alive other than him. It's just great. That's a great shot right there. It's really nice. Number 3 for me is Mystic River. I just, everybody's performance in that is just too good. It absolutely broke my heart at the beginning of that film when Sean Penn was crying out whether or not that was his daughter that they found. I mean, just the anguish in his voice, man. I just said, man, how do you reach down and you get that as an actor? And where does that come from? I mean, that's just fantastic. Number 2 for me was The Departed, Scorsese. I think you just got a cast like that. It's just everybody's at the top of their game. I agree that I think it's Mark Wahlberg's best performance that he's ever had. That part where he's sitting there in the briefing room and he says, "My theory about feds is to treat them like mushrooms, feed them shit and keep them in the dock. Ladies have a good day." I was like, man, that is just classic.
That is a good one.
Awesome.
I said, that's just a great line. I mean, Alec Baldwin was good in that. I mean, everybody was good in this movie. Vera Farmiga.
I love Vera. Yeah.
Heard of this lady, coming into this movie, and she just like blew it out of the water. Yeah. I was blown away. But number 1 for me, you guys have already said it. I can't see anybody touching No Country for Old Men. I just can't see it. I mean, I think it may be if we extend and we do our 2010s, it's still gonna be my number 1 thriller, even if we cover for 20 years during that span. Yeah. I can't see anything else touching it. And you guys have already touched upon everything. I look at Anton Chigurh as not just a villain; he's literally a force of nature.
Yeah,
it really is. Man. It's like a force of nature that you, if you're unlucky to come across, then you got a 50-50 shot, man. That's all I can tell you.
That's it. Those are great picks. I just have to go ahead, Sean.
No, I was just saying great picks on Brian's part.
Oh, great picks. Yeah. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. I like Unbreakable, but I think it's his second best movie. I'm sticking with The Sixth Sense. That movie blew me away, but it's debatable, and I like the points you made on it. I have a couple of honorable mentions. One of them is Collateral, the Michael Mann film with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx. Real stylized kind of movie. You got Cruise with the white hair and a hitman, and I really enjoy that film. I'm going to keep it brief. The other one is The Lovely Bones, which took me by surprise. I didn't expect to like it, but I really did. Saoirse Ronan is the girl who's murdered, and she's telling a lot of this story as a dead person. Stanley Tucci is so evil as the killer. Oh my God, this is a creepy movie. Shot in Pennsylvania too, so I know exactly where it's at. The Lovely Bones. Those are my runners up. My number 5 is a Christopher Nolan movie called Insomnia with Al Pacino and Robin Williams and Hilary Swank. This is really a psychological thriller of cat and mouse. It's set in Alaska. Alaska becomes its own little atmospheric character. The landscape, it's like a fishing town with a 17-year-old girl is murdered, and Al Pacino is sent from LA to investigate and help the young rookie Hilary Swank out up there solve this crime. Robin Williams is the villain.
That's right.
He shows his range again. He can play comedy, he can play drama, he can play downright despicable. And there's a backstory where Al Pacino is being investigated by internal affairs for something he might have done in another case to fudge things up a little bit. So he's a shady character, and he suffers from insomnia, thus the title. With, it's daylight up there all the time around. You got to shut the shades at night because it's daylight 24. He's in one of them cycles where it's 24 hours of daylight. It's a really good movie. I would recommend checking that out if you haven't. 4 is Zodiac, which Trey had also, starring the powerhouse cast of Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr., and Mark Ruffalo. Very detailed, meticulously detailed, I would say, by David Fincher to go through this whole case from the different perspectives, trying to solve it and track it down piece by piece by piece. You get inside the heads of these different characters. I really enjoyed it. Zodiac, and I lived through that time. Remember when that case was all over the newspapers. Number 3 is another Christopher Nolan movie, his first film, I believe, Memento. Starring Guy Pearce, as a guy who can't make new memories. Every 15 minutes he has amnesia. The story's told in reverse, where you have to get back to the beginning to see how he got in this condition. And in the meantime, he's taking Polaroids. He's having tattoos of things to remind himself, writing notes, because he can't remember who he met 5 minutes or 10 minutes before. It's a very clever screenplay, and I think it works really, really well. Guy Pearce put himself on the map here. Later, we saw him in LA Confidential. He's great in that too. Carrie Ann Moss and Joe Pantoliano are the supporting cast. And I really enjoyed that movie. So that's 2 Christopher Nolans and 1 David Fincher. And we know what our 2 and 1s are going to be. Number 2 is The Departed, Martin Scorsese's epic, classic Boston Irish mob, the great cast that you guys have already talked about. The race to identify who's the mole, who's the informant. Just brilliantly done with cell phones and all the stuff going on, the texting to get, ahead of the game. First time I've seen cell phones used that way in a major picture. This came out in 2006. Great movie. DiCaprio, Damon, I'm going to run them down again. Jack Nicholson, Wahlberg practically steals the movie. And I like Martin Sheen, Alec Baldwin as well, and Vera Farmiga. They're all great. And Ray Winstone, I believe, is one of the heavies involved in the
Mr. French.
Mr. French.
Yeah. Mr. French.
Who's a hired hand to do all the dirty work, and he's vicious as hell. I love the movie, and any other decade it would probably be number 1. It runs into No Country for Old Men, which is clearly one of my favorite movies of all time in any decade. From the Cormac McCarthy novel, Joel and Ethan Coen, a masterpiece. I would say it is better than Fargo, and they're my 1-2 in the legendary career of Mr. Joel and Ethan Coen. They're their 2 best movies. You could flip a coin, but I think No Country for Old Men has surpassed it right now as my favorite of theirs, with Josh Brolin as the guy who's out just deer hunting, and he comes across this series of dead bodies and large sum of money, and it just leads to this incredible story being hunted down by Javier Bardem, and expert filmmaking. The landscape again is shot really well, like West Texas. Trey would know better than us, but I think it really becomes its own character too. The dialect, Tommy Lee Jones, with some of the one-liners he has, so matter of fact. When they come upon him and his deputy, they come upon the dead bodies, and one's bloated up and one's freshly killed, and the guy goes, "What we got here is a mess," and Tommy Lee goes, "Well, if it ain't a mess, it'll do till the mess gets here." I mean, it's just that real iconic kind of dialogue, and I just love everything about it. Woody Harrelson is the bounty hunter too. He does make the most of his time on screen, and I do like Kelly MacDonald as the unassuming wife who gets drug into this mess for no fault of her own. Just awesome. They got a great cast here. I love everything about it. It's an epic. I don't know how many times I've seen it, but every time it's on, it's like Shawshank Redemption. I will not turn down an opportunity to watch this movie. It's that good. So that's my number 1. Even though The Departed, I feel bad putting in the 2 hole. I wanted to do a 1 and 1A, to be honest with you, but I had to pick one. So
we had a 1-1-2-1, right? That's how yeah. So,
Yeah.
that's a pretty damn good average.
That is.
And I think, honestly, through the years, if Trey watches both of them movies repeatedly, he may change his mind on that, or maybe
I might.
not.
I messed up the quadfecta for us, man.
No, I've done that before too. I did that with Inglourious Bastards. I don't feel bad. But you had it in the 2-hole, which if you would have had it 4
you're
or
right
5,
there.
Yeah, it was right there.
I think I read there that Paul Thomas was the Coens were not happy with Paul Thomas when because he's filming There Will Be Blood in Texas. And when that oil scene's happening and the huge explosion happens, they're filming No Country for Old Men just on the other side of the hill.
I did not know that.
And it delayed production for them because there was so much smoke from that fire that he did for like days.
How about that?
So it was like, I thought it was a neat little tidbit that was around the same time, and they're both like that close on location.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Trey a question too. Have you seen There Will Be Blood? I'm not sure that you have.
I haven't, and that's probably like the top film from the decade I still need to see, because I know those two are always grouped together, and you're probably going to ask me what I'm going to turn and ask you. Which one of those do you like more?
I like No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like No Country for Old Men, but then to Rich's point earlier there, I like, I mean, if I was to go back into the Coens, personally, I like Fargo better than No Country for Old Men, just because there's a little bit more character development on different levels with different characters for me.
I used to like Fargo. I used to like Fargo better, but the more I see No Country, it leapfrogged it for me.
Yeah, I'd have to watch them again back to back to make that kind of decision.
That's a tough call.
I can see both.
It is tough. And there's no wrong answer.
I don't think there's a wrong answer.
You can't go wrong either way.
You go wrong. I mean,
but I think the best performance of all of those is definitely Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
That's just such a great acting performance. Everything he is in is great. Nobody can upstage him. I don't care what movie he's in. He's the guy you're focusing on, whether it be Lincoln or what's the Irish movie?
The Gangs?
Gangs in
New York.
You're
doing The Name of the Father.
The Name of the Father. That's an unbelievably great movie. A great movie.
And even his early stuff like Unbearable Lightness of Being.
That's another great.
That's a start.
Incredible in that movie.
Yeah, amazing. And don't forget My Left Foot. Impossible to be better than that.
Last of the Mohicans. I mean,
he's clearly the best actor I've ever seen. And Philip Seymour Hoffman would be my number 2 if we had to line them up. Those guys are chameleons. They're great. They can do no wrong. But anyway, that wraps.
I'd add a couple to that list just to throw them in.
Throw them in.
Penn, and I would throw Penn into this list, and I would throw Gary Oldman.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They belong in that list.
Yeah,
no question.
And sneaking up there secretly is the guys like Brad Pitt and DiCaprio that would come into play as well.
They're in the next level, but I agree they're excellent at what they do. Up. But Gary Oldman, you have to put him in that list. He's that good.
Awesome.
He just doesn't get maybe the bigger roles that some of these other, but everything he's in, he's phenomenal in.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's wrap this up, and we'll come back with our 6th segment, which will be the horror/sci-fi. So again, everybody watching, thank you. Leave comments. Let us know your great crime thrillers. Did we miss anything? Or The Departed and No Country for Old Men not the best? We doubt it, but maybe you have another opinion on that. So let us know. Thank you again to Trey, Brian, Doc. Subscribe to their channels, AYBL Maine, Reactions to the Classics, and we will see you in our next segment. Thanks again. Take care. Bye.